All right, so good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us for this week's presentation workshop with Resiliency 101, Protecting Your Business from Disaster. My name is Bo Giles, and I'm the membership manager here at the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce. The South Tampa Chamber of Commerce is thrilled to be the very first organization in our region to host a resiliency program such as this one. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, the Tampa Bay Hillsborough Express Authority, for your support. I also would like to take a moment to recognize our media sponsors, the Tampa Bay Times and Tampa Bay Business Journal. I also want to thank our community partners that have joined with us to make sure our businesses are as strong as they possibly can be. So that would be the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, the City of Tampa, USF Muma College of Business today, and the Tampa Field Office of the FBI. And also want to welcome members of the Plant City, Riverview, and Tampa Bay LGBT chambers who are also joining us today. And so, on behalf of the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce, we are excited to have a curated collection of business experts moderated by Dr. Malarkey of the USF Muma College of Business. Please join us in welcoming Pete Kirtland, Ramin Kuzakanani, I hope I did that right, Andy Hafer, and Isabel Dewey. Should you have any questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature and we will allow time for Q&A at the end. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Malarkey.
All right, Bo, good morning, and good morning, South Tampa Chamber members. On behalf of the University of South Florida and the Muma College of Business, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present the curated panel. I hadn't been called a curated panel before, but I'm excited to present the business leaders and community leaders that we have with us today, all of whom are closely tied to the University of South Florida in a variety of ways and represent the best and brightest in terms of our outreach and community engagement at the Muma College of Business. So on behalf of President Steve Carell and my boss, Dean Moez Lumayam, again, Bo, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today. What we thought we would do is introduce each one of ourselves and tell a little bit about our story. So we have about an hour and a half, and we thought we'd break this up into a third, where the first third is an opportunity for these great community partners to share a little bit about their resiliency story in the face of the COVID crisis, which we are all experiencing and where we all have a story to tell. What I'm going to ask all of us to do is focus on that aspect of the story that really talks to resiliency. And in my mind, resiliency is about the mindset. It's about the organizational wherewithal and leadership. And the resiliency is about the ability to pivot and never let a crisis go without taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves in terms of our vendors, our employees, and our customers. So in my case, I'm Dr. Matt Malarkey. Again, a member of faculty in the USF Muma College of Business. I'm also the director of the Doctor of Business Administration degree program, and a program where we have seasoned professionals who look and act like a lot of you probably, with 12 to 15 years or more of seasoned professional experience, who come back to school and get a doctoral degree by pursuing research in an area of engaged scholarship. What we would talk to as the ability to take a look at research methods and apply them specifically to the work that you do and the insights you have as you build thought leadership in the space that you're in. So I'm very, very proud of the Muma Doctor of Business Administration degree program. And we have a couple members of our program in the curated panel here, which we will allow to introduce themselves. In our experience, and I'll talk just really briefly about our experience at the Muma College of Business, clearly the disruption that occurred in our environment was very similar to that occurred in yours. With very little notice, next to no notice, every member of our faculty and all of our students were forced to take almost all of our programs into an asynchronous or synchronous online mode. We also recognized that we needed to do a complete digital transformation in many respects in order to support our customers, who are those students, those 50,000 students across multiple campuses. And once they went home, across every state in the union and maybe a dozen more countries. One of the things, though, that we did sit down and do very early on, and I really credit the leadership of the dean of the school, Moez got the faculty together and asked for volunteers to step up and help deliver something that we ended up calling the Post-Crisis Leadership Certificate. That certificate, which we thought might have a couple hundred people interested in, was a 15-hour face-to-face opportunity for people to go through a rigorous, if you will, boot camp, earn about a 1.5 credit CEU, and be badged through Credly, but more importantly, gain some insights and understanding in terms of the post-crisis leadership skills that we thought our faculty could share best in case, best in practice, and bring in community leaders to help support. Well, the program, as many of you might know, was successful beyond our wildest dreams. We decided to make it a contribution to the community. The faculty contributed all of their time, effort, and energy. We had a community partner in DCE Live who put the whole production value up. And I have one of the investors and board members of DCE Live, Andy Haith, on this call to talk in part about that. And then we went out to the community and we asked our community leaders for their ability to help us and make an impact in the presentation of the materials that we provided. We thought we might have a couple of hundred people. We ended up with nearly 9,000 participants from 120 plus countries around the globe, dialing in synchronously for this high production value, high content value opportunity to really present the best and brightest ideas and opportunities for post-crisis leadership that we were all facing. Coming out of that, we were very pleased to see almost 4,000 individuals completed all of the certification, badging, et cetera. And our Muma family grew by almost 10,000 new members around the globe and around the country who are now interested in and invested in the USF Muma College of Business. And with that, I'll just describe that as never let a crisis opportunity pass you by. And it probably just takes an opportunity for a leader, a leadership team to sit down and do one thing first. Decide what you can do now to make a contribution to your community. And in our case, that community was all of our business partners, all of our seasoned business professionals, all of our students, and in fact, all of the staff and faculty across the campus who became members and participants and ultimately were certified and badged in our post-crisis leadership certificate. Without further ado, I'd like to pivot and ask my good friend and DBR, Pete Kirkland, to talk a little bit about the experience that he had with Aspire as they went through the same crisis. Pete?
Sure, thanks, Matt, and thanks for allowing me to be here. My name's Pete Kirtland. I am the the CEO of Aspire Financial Services, and we provide plan administration services for retirement plans like 401ks. And hang on one sec here. So it was interesting. We met yesterday and talked about this, and I was thinking about it last night, Matt. Anybody that had to deal with Hurricane Irma sort of got a little bit of training in all of this. I'm having issues with my internet. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It is breaking up just a little bit, but it makes me think of, you know, the book, The Black Swan.
Yes,
you know,
yeah, which you made us read as part of the DBA program. So anyway, we had to put in place a disaster recovery program for you know, best business practices, and we had to use that for Hurricane Irma, and a lot of those practices came into play here too. So if you think about retirement plan administration, we're heavily dependent upon technology, and we have to make trades every day that the market's open. So when we had to leave the office, and we ended up going up into the Panhandle. We had 200 employees, but we sent, I think I went with about 15 people, actually took our RV and went to Panama City, and then from Panama City went to New Orleans. Like who runs away from a hurricane and goes to New Orleans? But that's the way things worked. But through, Matt touched on something really interesting. Never let a good crisis pass you by, and we've been really fortunate. We've actually, I was telling the team yesterday, we've exceeded sales expectations this year. We significantly reduced costs. We're, just like everybody else, we had to go work from home. And when we did that, we found that we were like 30 to 40% more productive working from home. If you think about software development, think about all the distractions that you have at work, assuming that you've got 10 or more employees, you've got people stopping by your office, they want to talk to you, see how you're doing, the drive to work, the drive home, going out to lunch, all those things. And what I've found personally is that working from home, I get a workout in, I get behind my computer earlier, I stay a little bit later. And so we're now thinking about this like, all right, do we need all this office space? We were acquired last year. We've got about 25,000 square feet in Tampa and about the same in Philadelphia. And we're working from home so efficiently, and everybody seems to like it more, that we're thinking about reducing our office footprint, which isn't great for the commercial real estate brokers or the people that own the buildings, but it really has changed the way that we look at how we do business. And then some of the other things with the pandemic, just to run through, you think about human resources and onboarding people. One of the things that's happened with this is that now that we're working from home, we can hire, we're in a very specialized industry. We can hire people from all over the country now. Before we wanted people in the Tampa office or in the Philadelphia office. That no longer applies because now we can do Zoom or Teams interviews, virtual onboarding, if you want to refer to it as that. And then, one of the challenges, people are social creatures. We like being around each other. But what we've started doing are like these Zoom happy hours, more social stuff online. And then we're about to do a survey. One thing I would I think a major takeaway from all this is communication is even more important than ever. If you think that, I think somewhere I read 60-70% of our communication is through body language. Well, you kind of lose some of that. You get it with the Zoom meetings and the team meetings, but you do lose it if you're just like in chat sessions. I think we use chat a lot more than we used to. So you really have to be cognizant as a leader, how your folks are feeling, check in on them, make sure they're okay. We sent out care packages, which was a big hit. That was like around the holidays last year. And then the digital transformation you referred to, Matt, one of our verticals is 403B. So we service the financial advisor community. They go and get in front of teachers. They can't do that now. So we used to use paper forms that they would fill out. The financial advisor would sit with the teacher, help them fill out the form, send it in, process it, open the account, and away we go. Now we've had to build an online account opening experience. And instead of the old way used to take 3 to 5 days to open an account, now we can open it same day. So again, that was kind of nudged along by this pandemic. We were going to do it eventually. We got forced to do it immediately, and it's paid huge dividends. Ops, the company that bought us was a huge Salesforce user. We've now taken Salesforce and turned it into a workflow tool. And so now as things get done, like somebody might do something in their house in Pennsylvania, and then the next step is somebody in Tampa takes it, and it just kind of works its way through that process in Salesforce. So that's basically digitized, for lack of a better word. but yeah, it's been, and me personally, I was thinking about this too. I think I've filled my car like 3 times in the last 6 months with gas. And I unfortunately bought 3 new suits right before the pandemic, and I just wore a blazer for the first time in 6 months 2 weeks ago for a fundraiser. And so I haven't been to the dry cleaner, haven't been to the gas station. I'm working out more, which is great. And so just never let a good pandemic pass you by, I guess. Not to make light of it, it's obviously been very hard on people, but that's kind of a background on us. And we've got, like I said, we've got about 250 employees between Philadelphia and Tampa. And yeah, so it's been very transformative, I guess is a great word. So with that, I'll throw it back to you, Matt, and you can introduce the next person, unless you have any questions.
No, we'll save questions for the end. But thanks, Pete. And again, you see mindset, you see leadership, we see pivots, and we see opportunity, and then opportunities to serve customers in new and different ways. We were talking yesterday, one of my favorite cartoons is the cartoon, To What Do You Owe Your Digital Transformation? Your CIO, your CTO, your capital investment plan, or COVID. And I think many of us are doing the things we know we needed to do when it came to digital transformation because COVID is making us do it. So with that, I'd like to pass it to Andy Hafer, and maybe Andy could talk about his experience at DCE Live this summer.
I'd love to. Thank you. And thanks for having me on the panel. This is a great group to be a part of. My name is Andy Hafer. I guess I could be classified as a serial entrepreneur. I've had several startup businesses after a long career in technology. So have had the fortunate situation of at least one significant exit and a couple of smaller ones. So I've been, for the last few years, dabbling in startup companies and doing different things, both for-profit and nonprofit. Something that I'm real proud of is experiencing the life as an entrepreneur. Learned that you don't do it alone. And so one of the things that I was a part of co-founding is the function called Synapse. And maybe you guys have heard of that, but it's really a community around the early stage ecosystem in Tampa Bay that's in place to really help from an economic development standpoint, new companies be established and thrive, and all the good things that economic development brings on. One of the companies that I've had is called DCE Live. We go by the name of DCE Productions, just to make sure that people know that we do more than just live activities. But DCE is a event production company. In fact, several of my companies are surrounding the live event, or rely on live events. I have a software training company whose hallmark is big training conferences and things like that. And I thought that was a good thing until all of a sudden you can't have live events, and my portfolio went to hell in a handbasket. So my story around DCE is, well, I was on spring break. My kids came back from college and we had a nice little family vacation in the middle of March. And, I had been hearing about this pandemic or this COVID thing, and but wasn't paying too much attention of it. And by the end of that week, I'm like, yeah, this is real. I mean, and so I scheduled meetings with all of the people, all the management teams running all the different companies that I was involved in. And I remember the one sitting down with DCE, because that one was going to get whacked in the face. I mean, the DCE Productions spends its life supporting event planners, corporations, charities for fundraising, things like that, to enable mostly live events. We had done about 15% prior to that on digital events and digital activities. So we had some experience in the virtual world, but by far our world was all about loading up a truck with speakers and microphones and projectors and podiums and staging and things like that, and going to some convention center so that a corporation could get some meeting done or message across or some show or gala or anything. So we had some experience in it, but when we sat down with the management team in our conference room, before we knew we were supposed to be wearing masks and socially distancing in mid-March, we came to the realization, because our clients had now started dropping their events, and so we saw our revenue just falling off the board. And so we took a look at our forecast, and we posted zeros all the way through. Of course, we had a little bit of revenue prior to COVID in March, but it was essentially the remainder of March, April, May, and June. And we thought certainly by July this would be back to normal and this thing will have passed. And so our mode of operation then was to figure out how to get on the other side. But what we were able to do, because we had that experience in the virtual event production world, was really emphasize that. And so there was probably a period of a week or so where the world just went on pause, and we were wringing our hands just like most of our clients. And I'd say right after that little period, we went to all of our clients who didn't know what to do. I mean, these were people who had critical events. Some of them were revenue producing events that were part of their revenue stream and their livelihood. Some of them were fundraising for big charities. Some of them were key communication elements that were either through internal or for internal audiences or external audiences. And so they didn't know what to do either. So we met with everybody in almost a therapy kind of a way, and came to the conclusion that some of these events can go on, just had to be reformatted. And so a lot of people think that when you take an event online that used to be physical, it's just a matter of putting it up on Zoom and just doing what you did. And that's just so far from the truth. I mean, there's pros and cons of the online event. Pete talked about some of them, Matt talked about some of them, but you can really take advantage of the distance learning, the online type of platform way differently than the physical stuff. So there's a whole process of reformatting and rethinking that goes in there before you just kind of announce a Zoom meeting and have your event that you were having before. So we started training the people who used to work, hang lights and drive trucks and move boxes, and we started training those who were willing on the virtual platforms. And we started getting busy, and right around that time is when Moez and Matt came to us and said, hey, we're really thinking about this distance learning certificate program. Would you guys support us on that? And you can't say no to Matt or Moez for that matter. And so we donated what we thought, like Matt said, was going to be a little bit of support in getting them up on this platform. It turned out to be just amazing. I mean, as the numbers of registrants started climbing, and our platforms, we pay a little chunk every time someone registers. So like, this is not a small donation anymore. So we came up with a little bit bigger pot of money to enable it. But I'm just so happy that thrived and prospered. And we had it really helped us kind of hone our ways, because it was a free event. And Moez jokes is if you're not totally satisfied, we'll give you 100% of your money back. It's a free event, so low risk. So that happened, and that helped really us hone our capabilities of delivering these large scale activities. And essentially we the really key part of the story right there was the CARES Act came out right around there, and we qualified for a little loan that we were able to use for retooling and retraining our people. And so we were able to retain almost everybody. In fact, in hindsight, we've now hired more people because of the places we've been able to go with being on the forefront of turning and helping people that used to live on live events into virtual events. Some of the things that are exciting now, again, we were kind of in the front of this, and so a lot of the platforms, the big virtual event platforms, CommPartners, Bizzabo, not so much Zoom, since that's almost on the consumer end of it, but the larger events that people are using these platforms for. Those software companies came, unglued. They didn't know what hit them either. Everybody was calling them to now license their software so that they could move forward. And there's just a complete underestimation of the undertaking of that. You used to have, I know there's some event planners in the South Tampa Chamber, and you guys really empathize that, it's not just a matter of renting a ballroom and all of a sudden you have an event. There's food and beverage, there's invitations and registration, and just a lot of things to think about when you're putting an event on. And for some reason, people think that a live event is just a matter of turning on Zoom, and that's just not the case. And so these software providers who are in business to write and deploy software and license software, we're getting all these calls to, do these big events for corporations and others, and they just couldn't keep up with it. So because we had been working with them so much, we now have been getting calls from those software providers to be their services arm. So just a couple of days ago, we inked our second global deal with a significant partner. And so anytime one of their clients needs services, they just send them down to us. So the don't miss an opportunity to take advantage of a good crisis has come true to us. We will look at spring of 2020 and the COVID pandemic as a metamorphosis time where we were able to completely pivot and move towards a completely new business model. We're not leaving the old one behind because we believe that someday there will be the live event again. So our warehouse is full of all that stuff that goes on trucks. But right now our warehouse is mostly built out of sterile studios with socially distanced capabilities, and allowing people to come in and do recordings and kind of live presentations, as well as the studios and the technology required to produce those. So that's our story, and be happy
to it.
Yeah. Let's dig into it. Thanks.
Andy, thank you so much. As somebody who got to experience, the transformation of a warehouse into a studio, it was remarkable how well and quickly that was done. And again, we hear these themes, don't be afraid to engage with your customers and redefine what success looks like. I think that's remarkable. Don't be afraid to repurpose assets, and definitely look for opportunities to retrain our people, if they're willing, into providing other skills and capabilities that the customer will value. So really appreciate that, Andy. And having seen it firsthand, I can just vouch for the fact that this was a work in progress from the very beginning, and I just watched your team continue to pivot. And speaking of pivots and continued growth and challenges, but also opportunities in this particular crisis, why don't I pivot over to our next presenter. Let me ask Isabel Dewey, on behalf of ReliQuest, to talk a little bit about the lived experience for her team, leadership team, and ReliQuest, one of our cybersecurity leading companies in the Tampa Bay area. Isabel.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one of the things that really defines ReliQuest is our office culture and mindset. We made the hard decision, like almost all other businesses, on, I think it was March 13th was the date that we needed to all go remote. Now we have 2 offices in Tampa, but also one in Las Vegas, one in Salt Lake City, and one in Dublin as well. So we made the decision across all of our offices to move from home, which was something that was not taken lightly. And I remember all of us saying, we're just doing this for 2 weeks. We'll see everybody back on March 30th. And then there were some things that we immediately changed, actually, as part of our relationship and partnership with USF. We have a program that we call RQ Labs. And that has historically been within our security operations center. And we bring the students in, and we quickly made that pivot to a virtual program as well. So that was a 4-week education program, and then that turned into a virtual internship for many of those students. We also changed quite a few of our business processes, and in many ways we're not going to go back. For example, we used to bring everybody, all of our employees from all of our offices to onboard here in Tampa face to face. And in some cases, it was like 3.5 weeks for our technical resources that were getting up to speed with our platform. And so we did not miss a beat. We have onboarding at the beginning of every month. And starting with our April onboarding, we started doing those sessions remotely. And what we plan on doing going forward is that they'll still be in a virtual environment. However, we're going to ask our new employees to go to the offices that they're assigned to, so that they can meet peers, start getting acclimated, but not have to travel potentially, across the country or, to the US from Ireland. We have taken a little bit of a different stance. So one thing at the beginning, we were fast and furious. We did not see any impact on, collaboration and output. What we started seeing towards the middle end of the summer is that there was a lot of fatigue. There's a lot of noise out in the news. There's a lot of Zoom fatigue, and we felt that there were gaps that were being missed, and also from an employee wellness perspective, there were things that we were promoting. We have, something called BetterHelp, which is a mental health app. Like, we were promoting those, knowing that a lot of our employees were just struggling, right? Some of them had moved to a new city, were living by themselves, and work provided as a social outlet in addition to obviously productivity. So we started phasing people in. The leadership team, we started coming in actually the week of Memorial Day. We gave people an option to come back starting on June 1st. Then we gave people an option, like an additional wave on July 15th. We have the majority of our employees that are back as of the end of August. And then we have a wave that's coming back, a smaller wave at the end of September. We still have a handful of employees that are continuing to work from home due to, medical accommodations. But for the most part, having some sense of normalcy, even though we have, pretty stringent restrictions in terms of capacity in boardrooms. If people get up from their desk or leave their office, they're required to wear a mask. So we have all of these, we put in partitions in all of our cubicles, and we don't see that changing anytime soon, at least for the foreseeable future. But for us, it was important to get to a sense of somewhat normalcy. We also, one of the things that in terms of resiliency, that we put out there from an employee engagement perspective is we actually had some mindset coaches do virtual sessions on like goal setting during adversity. And one thing, you realize is that so many, of the largest corporations, there's been a lot of opportunity coming out of difficult times. And we know that this is difficult for people, emotionally, if they have children, from a childcare perspective, if they're in the sandwich generation and have elderly parents and kids. And so, we want to provide as much opportunity for our employees to really take that time to reflect, to set goals, and to move forward.
Isabel, thank you so much. For our company with 300, 400, 500 people across multiple sites and across multiple countries, I just found it remarkable how rapidly, once you put your mind behind it, you went remote. It was the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen, sort of secondhand, but it was pretty remarkable. And what I attribute it to is absolutely consistency with the values of the company. You have a culture, you have a set of values, you invoke those values as a leadership team, and then, each one of those values was part of the execution. And I think that just speaks to the remarkable foundation that you and Brian and the leadership team there have put in place, right? You can't invent that at the moment of the crisis. That
No, and it definitely is a test to those values. And for the attendees, we have 4 pillars in our corporate culture, which is adaptable, accountable, focused, and helpful. And for example, like in our security operations center, some people were using, like normal computers, desktops, right? So it was from little things of making sure that everyone had a laptop to now as people are coming back there, because they used to have desktops, people used to share keyboards and desks at different shifts because our security operations center is on a shift rotation. And so all of that has been changed. We were very fortunate that we actually moved and split offices in the beginning of February. So we used to all be in one office, and we were fairly tight, which is why we moved, and then moved to an office where we have our corporate functions. So our non-technical finance, marketing, inside sales, recruiting, all of that in a completely separate space. And what that allowed us to do was, from a space utilization perspective, is really split out, and the room that we were accounting for as part of our just normal growth became required, in order for us to feel confident in the way that we're operating the business and giving people enough space, to work.
So there you go. Those of you that are in commercial real estate, we let Pete throw cold water on you. And here's another opportunity. Obviously, you're facing the same challenges to pivot, to be adaptable, to be flexible, and to figure out, what is the new normal. In fact, Moaz is very famous in my mind for repeating the phrase that there is no new normal. There is the new post-COVID environment that we're all going to be living in. And just like, as Pete said, Irma changed the way we prepared for these kind of Black Swan events. I think this particular crisis is going to definitely prepare us for the way we pivot with our customers. And the last comment I would make is, finding and celebrating some amazing successes that are unexpected. So as Isabel said, we had 55 students and half a dozen instructors and participants, professional participants from ReliaQuest involved in the RQ cybersecurity labs at the USF Muma College of Business. Literally in 1 week, the entire team and all those students took it online. One of the remarkable successes was that the breakout capability that was available to us through the Teams environment, or Zoom, no, it was a spinoff of Zoom that you all use.
Ring Central.
Ring Central. The breakout capability actually eliminated some of the physical problems that we had with finding rooms on campus and lifting and moving groups of students around campus in order to create these rooms. And boom, they went almost instantaneously into these rooms. They immediately, the students reported that they felt like they had better interaction with their mentors. They had closer interaction with each other, that it was seamless. They didn't waste time, effort, and energy. And they did it all from the comfort of wherever they happened to be. So again, celebrating that success was one of the things I think Isabel and I remarked on right away. It was just fantastic. And those things are out there to celebrate.
Thanks.
And with that, I don't think you can talk about the business community of the South Tampa Chamber without talking about the county and without talking about the leadership of our county administration, our county commission. And one of the people who, in my experience, has consistently been at the forefront of every innovative, inventive, and opportunity for expansion of services and the opportunity to connect even more fully with both citizens and the businesses in our community is right here with us. And Ramin, without further ado, I wonder if you would introduce yourself and
Thank you.
talk a little bit about your lived experience.
Of course. Thank you, Matt, and thank you everybody for having me. This is a great panel, and I'm actually learning as everybody's speaking. So this is a great opportunity. Hillsborough County is blessed with fantastic leadership. And I think all of you know this, I hope. We're not known, government isn't really known for agility. But I have to tell you that your government has been fantastic in pivoting, in really turning on a dime. We were able to mobilize over 2,000 employees and literally in a matter of a week and a half. We were able to stand up public meetings. When Andy was talking about events, it really resonated with me because you have to recognize that every board meeting is an event. Every emergency policy group meeting that we were having twice a week were events. And the opportunity that you have to provide citizens to participate in their government and speak with their representatives and make their comments, all of those are events. And I'm extremely proud of our team, our collective team. Our communications department has just been fantastic. Our IT department has just been tremendous. I want to report to you that you should be very proud of your government in Hillsborough County. The team as a whole has done a fantastic job. Code enforcement has been taking place. Law enforcement is Sheriff Cronister, obviously fantastic. Obviously it's a separate agency, but we work closely with one another. Very proud of his organization. All the other representatives, all the other elected officials are doing the same thing. The courts are ongoing. The clerk of the court is ongoing. The supervisor of election is doing an amazing job in an election year, given the cybersecurity parameters that he needs to be cognizant of, and a property appraiser. And quite honestly, I am so proud and elated to know that we could do this. Now, one of the challenges that government has is that at least in my view, is that it used to look at disasters as in Florida, in terms of hurricanes. And every business continuity plan that you probably see in local government in Florida talks about the hurricanes and the pre-event, during and after, and things would go back to normal. I think what we've learned is that disasters, God forbid, could be long-term, and the business of government has to go on, and we have to serve the people. And we've actually had many conversations about, to Isabel's point, about what really happens afterwards. What are those opportunities? We really are looking at various ideas around maybe hoteling. Maybe there are employees who, in the interest of keeping them engaged with their cohort, maybe they can pop in and plug in once a week or so and sort of engage, and then other than that, be remote. Maybe there's an opportunity for real estate, a deep dive into our real estate. Do we really need that kind of space? And those are all, as terrible as this virus has been, those are all opportunities that Dr. Malarkey was alluding to that we're really looking at closely. Now, I submit to you, though, that we as a community are not perfect. And I'm really glad that we're having this conversation, especially through the South County Chamber, because there are parts of this county, as rich as we are, as prominent as we are, that are dark in terms of broadband. South County, East County, there are pockets of darkness where, by darkness, I mean there's no broadband. And how do you have children who are supposed to e-learn in their homes when their homes aren't lit up? Those are our challenges, collective ours, all of us, not just government, but all of us. specifically in partnerships with providers, those are our challenges to solve. We, on the county side, we are engaging very heavily with providers right now to put up Wi-Fi connections in our libraries, in various buildings, in Waimama and South Shore and other areas, in order to bridge that gap to the extent that we can. But this is I challenge us to consider this as the thing to fix together, because we have to make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate. And the other thing I'll leave you with is and I'm so glad Isabel is on the panel, is cybersecurity. As we get our events, to Andy's point, more online, as these events are more data-driven, as our data transmits and transfers throughout the internet, and as we have more employees who are engaged in critical work, we've got to make sure that our systems are secure to the extent possible, and really make sure that we don't stop interactions in the interest of too much security.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you have to be secure, but what are those opportunities where you can allow people to participate, but yet make sure that there are enough security parameters around. But with that, in the interest of time, let me leave it there, Matt, if that's okay. But we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, that's perfect, Ramin. And I think you really help us remember that in times of crisis, we do have these spotlights that shine on areas, like you said, of darkness, wherever they might be. They might be in our business, they might be in our community. And as you said, it actually presents both an opportunity, a blessing, and a bit of a bane, right? Unless we address it. And so the blessing is you've actually transformed, and I've watched you transform the ability for citizens to participate with the commissioners in their meetings and their events. I mean, that's been remarkable. And the county has gone out of its way to take things that used to have to be done in person or had to be done through paperwork and move those into some of these digitally transformed environments. But of course, all of that additional access is only as good as the citizens' ability to get online. And so where we need to spend time, effort, and energy, we need to spend resource. There's no time like the present, is there, Ramin?
That's right.
So perfect. All right, so we're really have consumed sort of the first third, maybe half of our time together. I do want to be sensitive to the fact that Ramin is going to have to jump off at 10 o'clock and join another session, a county session, get back to his day job, as it were. So why don't I start with Ramin, but I do have a question that I would like the whole panel to talk to. And if we can do this for about 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll leave the last 15 minutes or so, Bo, for questions from the South Tampa Chamber members, if you will. So let's think a little bit about exploring new business models. And I know that seems counterindicative for something like a county or a university, but if I start with Ramin, maybe give us an example of how you've actually found a way to explore kind of a new business model in what you're doing and what that seems to mean for, you know, the transformation under this particular crisis. And then I'll go around the horn. Go ahead.
Well, really, our business model, government typically is brick and mortar, and by definition, this virus has created an opportunity for us to really execute our digital government strategy. One of the things I'm very proud of in this county is that we've been talking about digitization and electronic government for a number of years now. And all of our systems and processes are conducive to that. And we had actually been thinking about this systemically. As we speak, for example, there's a massive project on automating our permitting system, which I think the community is going to be excited about, the citizens especially, I think, and these inspections. I don't want to get ahead of our story, but there will be an opportunity for inspectors to announce themselves prior to arrival. Citizens will know who the inspector is. So all of these automation sort of projects who were in the planning process are now being prioritized differently. And as you know, in government, they have to be budgeted. And we are blessed to have a board that also supports this model and supported this model even prior to this issue, to this pandemic. So we are fast and furious automating. We're recognizing that the brick and mortar, if I can just think about the banking industry. I mean, I don't know how many of you have been inside a bank lately, but I haven't. But there are those who really like to pop in from time to time and chat, you know, and maybe grab a cookie and say hello. And so we're cognizant of that. We're not going to close the brick and mortar, but there will be a massive push toward automation and digitization for sure.
Beautiful, thank you. And I wanted to, I almost forgot, but you had some thoughts on the CARES Act too, and how it might be effective.
I did. And Bo, I had provided a brochure to be shared with the membership and others. I don't know if that, I think that was sent to Erica. We encourage folks to please get on the website, take a look. We have a very comprehensive application process. If you haven't applied, if you feel like you qualify, please take a look at it, and then hopefully you qualify. But there is a qualification process. You'll go through the application. But I want to make sure that the word was out. Again, our communications department has done a great job broadcasting this out, but I thought this would be another opportunity to put a plug in case you haven't heard about it.
Perfect. Ramin, thank you so much for your
Absolutely.
time. I know you have to drop off.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you all.
Cheers. Who wants to take it next?
I'll go if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete. Thanks.
No, so some interesting thoughts there about exploring new business models. You know, you always have to keep in the back of your mind when you build a new model, is it something your clients, something that'll support your clients? And I had a couple thoughts there as Ramin was talking about internet coverage. So like you could build the most cool digitized solution, but if people don't have internet and they can't use it, it really doesn't do your clients any good. And I was thinking about one of our own situations. We had an advisor bring a manufacturing firm's 401k to us, and we've got online enrollment and all these neat solutions. And he was like, hey, these people don't even own computers. Half of them don't have phones. And it's like, oh, okay. Back to paper we go. But just, that was kind of my thought. And then as you build out, like as you morph into a new business model, always keep in the back of your mind what we're going through right now. Like if this were to happen again, would this model support a pandemic or some black swan in the future? And because they're black swans, they're hard to predict. But you know, with the digitization, other considerations are security. It feels like we spend half of our time trying to keep the bad guys out of our system. And so those are my thoughts on that. Just, you know, be careful what you build. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it has to support your client base. And it would be very easy to build something that's really cool, but doesn't get the job done.
I used to always say that if you're in business, you're in sales, right? There's no doubt. You got to be selling. We're
Absolutely.
But we're also in this world today where if you're in business, you're in technology. And I defy you to find a business anymore out there today that is not a technology-centric business. And the final reality with regard to that, maybe it's not the final, but the next evolution of that is if you're in technology, you better be in security. And maybe that's a good opportunity for me to pivot to Isabel. Any thoughts on this new business model, particularly when it comes to security and where ReliaQuest might be taking us?
Yeah, well, what we've seen from security departments is that because of some of the business pressures that they're feeling, depending on the size of the organization or just the model, that some of their security departments are actually getting smaller. And so as they look to potentially cut costs, companies like ReliaQuest are really fitting a market niche where we can augment their security teams, and they'll need less FTEs. So that's a market opportunity there that we're seeing, over and over again.
We've also seen this massive expansion, right, of sort of the threat horizon for every company. So where we might have had the bounding of it by the physical space of a building, a facility where all those desktops that you were talking about were located, now we have hundreds of employees and they're everywhere.
Everywhere.
And all of a sudden, they're all targets, and the bad guys only have to be right once, right? They just have to get in one time, undetected, and we're at severe risk. And so I've seen you guys take whole new ways of looking at how do you automate this whole process of just scanning the spectrum of new different devices that are now accessing networks for our companies. And Andy, what about you? You've talked about a number of kind of different ways you guys pivoted into new business models. Any other thoughts?
Well, the thing, again, that I'm most proud of the team, CEO Paul Harris and his team have done is really figured out how to retool. I mean, DCE has a set of core values that focuses a lot on what I would consider altruistic measures. So, we really care about the people that we work with. We try to make sure that their skill sets were relevant to the new model. As I mentioned, we're first in line to donate services to enable the Muma thing, the Synapse thing. Those are things that we're super proud of because it gets us to practice and to do things that maybe are a little bit more experimental that a paying customer may not want to do. But I think so, internally looking, but the external one I think is what I'm the most proud of. And I just put in the chat bar something that I was waiting for the ability or the notification that it's public knowledge, but today is going to be a big announcement that I don't know if anyone's familiar with Rise of the Rest. This is a major economic development format. It's a fund and a entrepreneurial effort by Steve Case, who is the founder of AOL, who obviously has a big pot of money to do things with, and he had been running around the country to cities like Tampa Bay, looking and putting the highlight on the startup ecosystem, and he was doing that in a bus. And so this was his gimmick. And we had a big event with him here last year that matched the early stage ecosystem with bringing them to town. Obviously, that completely you're not capable of doing that anymore, and even the bus rides are out of the question. So the DCE team worked with them to reinvent how to do that. And I'll say it again, in a virtual setting, there's 10 times as much details to consider. There's the inevitable failure of technology. I mean, even things as easy as a microphone and a video camera, you guys have all wrestled with that. So really getting all that right is so critical. But today he's announcing that DC is going to produce the Rise of the Rest virtual tour. and the first stop is Tampa Bay, and he is granting, I think it's, I don't know if I have the numbers correct, but I think it's a $2 million grant that's going to be divided up into 3 lucky winners of a pitch competition, focusing on Black and minority-owned businesses. So get the word out if you're a young business in Tampa Bay and you're minority owned. This is a big deal. It could, the first prize is a $1.5 million grant to get you going. So reinventing business models, absolutely. I mean, we have come to the conclusion that there is a new normal. It is not going to ever go back to what it is before. And some of these things that we've been forced to do are creating way better ways to do things going forward. So, it worked for us internally, and I believe through some of the support that we've been giving people who can make a huge difference in the world, it's doing it externally for us as well.
It makes me, I was listening to the Deputy Fed Chair talk this morning to Bloomberg, and he was commenting on the fact, the question was something like, where are we going to see recovery first in the world? And his perspective, right or wrong, is that you can't go much further faster than what we see across this country of ours. We just have an ability in our markets, in our businesses, in our leadership, and in our labor to respond and react and adjust and pivot more effectively than just about any place else in the world. And I think you hear that in what Andy's talking about. It also makes me think of the fact that, when all of us are doing this, there is no denying. Andy made a gentle point about the fact that technology will fail, right? And here we are saying, oh, this is a great digital transformation. We become technology companies. We're going to do more with less, with more technology. I think what I have been finding remarkable is how compassionate we have been with each other, with the dogs barking in the background, the children playing, the cats going across the computers, things like, interruption in service. I hope that is the new norm as well for us, because there is no perfect technology. There is no technology without glitches and failures and bugs. There's always going to be an opportunity for us to be quite compassionate with each other as we learn and grow our way through this new normal. So you just reminded me, Andy, of a critical aspect of what I am seeing. Go ahead.
I have a funny story on that. The DCE produced a event for Tampa Bay Tech, which is a prominent organization in Tampa Bay that focuses on technology and the workforce in technology, another economic development group doing great things. One of the speakers, so I'll give you a little background. It was produced in the studio, but it was bringing in speakers from various places for their event, and then it was being broadcast to, I think, at least 2, maybe 3 different outlets. It was out. People could join via Zoom. They could join via Facebook Live, and I believe YouTube as well. But it doesn't matter how you look at it. It's being syndicated across several outlets. So one of their speakers was the CIO of Zoom, the company that builds the software we're talking on right now. And he had a fantastic speech, but somewhere in the middle of that speech, the Zoom outlet just stopped working. You could see it on Facebook, you could see it on YouTube, but poor old Zoom crapped out right at the wrong time when their head of technology was trying to get his message across. So yes, even the tried and true ones are vulnerable.
It can happen to the best of us. And I think we all have those stories. And I think it's worth reflecting on. If you transform your mentality, and we were talking with Isabel about mindset, but if we transform our mindset from a get it right, get it perfect mindset to a learning, growing mindset, we can accept a lot of these glitches with ourselves, with our people, with our customers, our vendors. And I think we build a more resilient, more robust ability to affect both change, but also supply the goods and services that people want to value. Isabel, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, but we have, by providing that consistency and never wavering from it, I think both our internal and external customers are just happy, and they understand, you know, we're by minimizing like the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. It goes a long way from both a client service perspective and also internally.
Yeah, I like that. I know that Brian talks about FUD and the elimination of FUD. You know, our job is to be there with our people, our customers. Somebody was talking about the importance of communication, and Brian says the communication around eliminate fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and focus then on the things that you value and your customers value. And I love that. Kill FUD. All right, Bo, you know, I think we have about 15, 20 minutes left, or Erica. Are there questions out there for the panel that we could address?
Actually, you guys must have did a really good job because there are no questions. However, with that being said, I do have a question I think our members would benefit greatly from. You know, if you all had to pick one main lesson that you have all learned from this crazy year, what would you say that is?
I think feeling confident in controlling the controllables, right? There's so many things that you can't control. We can't control a global pandemic, but you can control your actions in a global pandemic. You know, I think all of us, like I know as a parent, right? Like I was at the whim of the various schools. That was something I could not control, but I could create contingency plans and then, you know, navigate around that. And I feel like having ownership of those controllables, you know, just to add to the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Like you just focused on the prize of like, all right, I'm going to make this turn, but then I can make a decision of which way I go from there. And I think that's at least personally kept me sane during the last 7 months.
Mine is accept that we're not just waiting out this pandemic and the other situations. Accept that this is going to create a change in the way we live and the way we work, and build your business models for this new model and be ready to do it again and again as this evolves and we learn more and more about it. But waiting for it to go back to normal just ain't going to happen.
No, Andy, that's great. And I think just from our organization standpoint, for the longest time, I felt like we were kind of in that in-between phase, right? So, you know, not fully accepting that this is just going to be not the new normal, but the permanent normal. And I think once we made that commitment to say, okay, we're not going to wait this out, we're just going to be proactive and just accept that this is just how it's going to be. I think we were able to be a lot more successful as an organization. So I like that point. That was a good one.
Pete?
Yeah, so I would say two things. One, communication. Communication's always critically important, but I don't think it's ever been more important than right now, just because of all the uncertainty that everybody on the panel has been talking about. And it's almost like you can't over communicate both with your clients and your employees. So communicate. And the other one's just compassion, like you talked about, Matt. And a quick funny story. You know, you mentioned kids and dogs and stuff like that on these Zoom meetings. And I was on a Teams meeting with about 9 people, and one of the guy's dogs barked. And then my dog started barking at his dog, and then somebody else's dog started barking at their dog. And then it turned into, everybody thought it was pretty funny, but I've absolutely seen, you know, just greater patience, and we're all in this together. And so, yeah, you see, you know, people's kids cruising through the screen, and pets and dogs, cats, whatever the case may be, doorbells ringing, the Amazon guy dropping off a package. Just, you know, patience and empathy.
And Bo, I think my aha moment was early on when I realized that, and I've seen the result of, if you can give something away, that you control, to Isabel's point, if you can give something that would truly be valued by your customer or your employees, and you can do it, you know, and the response to that and the reward for doing that will be, you know, many, many times whatever you thought you gave away. Andy and DCE Live gave us literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in kind activity and studio support. We as faculty, 24 faculty, gave countless hours and time and effort and energy to build and share content. And the overwhelming response to that, and I don't mean this in a self-serving way, I just mean it in a community and engaged way. If you have an opportunity in this crisis or any other to give something of yours to your community, take advantage of it, because it will multiply in terms of its effect and impact.
No, that's great, Dr. Malarkey. And that's something that the South Tampa Chamber has definitely done. You know, I think that being very sensitive to different businesses, you know, situation during this time has been really fruitful for us. And I think we've seen a lot of support from the community from that. Well, I just want to go ahead and wrap up here. Again, thank you so much, everybody on this panel. I know that our members are going to be able to become definitely stronger from some of the great advice you guys were able to provide. And so for the rest of the group, please make sure that tomorrow you're with us for our last and final day of our Resiliency 101 workshop. Just like, again, as a reminder, all the information will be sent out to the attendees following today's meeting. The recording will be uploaded to the Chamber's website sometime in the next week. Thank you all. Thanks for being with us this morning. Have a productive and wonderful work day, and we will all catch you tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bo. Thank you, Erica. Thank you.